This lesson is mainly for how to put an assembly together. You also took a picture of those 6 blocks and already sent them to me. From there, now you have to make sure that those blocks are going to be assembled in the form of the stack that you took a picture of that you sent to me. So, in Unit 2, Assembly Design, we're going to go to open up Lesson 2 and 2.1.3, putting it together. Now, there's a couple things I want you to do before we actually get into the assembly of the project, is to understand. So we're not going to do immediately the selfie stick design file. If you do get done with this lesson early, that would be a nice challenging lesson to go through. So you could go through, since we are using Fusion360, get the selfie stick design file by clicking this and downloading that lesson. If you could go through the Intro to Engineering Design Degrees of Freedom, it's a nice short embedded 1 minute and 8 second video on why it's important to understand the joinery of the in our case, the blocks. You can also see it in the joint types. It's a short, not even 4.5 minute video on the different types of joints that you can put together. With the blocks, we're obviously going to stick with a fairly basic assembly. I'm going to open up my Fusion where I already have my blocks saved. And I have them saved under Home in my course files for the project, and then in a new folder, Assembly Blocks. Now, when you start a new file, if I hit the little plus sign here, and I have Untitled 1, I'll close Untitled. You can't start bringing into your blocks until this is, your blocks into your drawing, until you actually have this saved. So what we need to do is hit Save, and I'm going to save this as Assembly, and location, I'm going to keep it in my course files and Assembly Blocks. Select Save. So now that it's saved, as version 1 for assembly. So if any changes need to be done to the blocks, you can do them in that file and they'll change within the assembly. Pretty sharp technology. So right now, mine, I'm going to have to refer to my picture that I took. And looks like I have the first one in my picture as the red block on the bottom. So I'm going to click and hold my red block and bring it into the drawing and drop it. Where you put it currently is just arbitrary. It really doesn't matter where you put it. I'm going to select OK and not worry about where it is within the X, Y, Z, and so on where I put it. What I do want to worry about is grounding it. Currently, I'm just kind of clicking or wheeling around, clicking on my wheel, handing it. If I click on the actual rectangle block, I can move it around. And that's a good thing for right now. However, you do want to what's called ground it. Keep it in one spot, so it will not move. This is what you're going to be basing your assembly off of. So if I come up over here into my little tree and I select my 0.5 inch rectangle, if I select my right mouse button and I select ground, now you're going to have this this pop up. We can just hit capture position, basically saying that this is the spot that we wanted, and then I just left click in my screen to reset. Now if I click and hold with my left mouse button, you can nothing is happening. It is grounded. It's staying right there. So within my isometric view, that cube that I have right now, that one's fixed. Okay. Now the next one I'm going to bring in the tunnel block, and I'm going to select, click hold on my tunnel block and drag it in. Now it's going to lay it, in this case, about the spot. You can move it anywhere you want. It really doesn't matter because you are going to use the assembly to put it together. So right now I'm just going to hit OK. And I'm going to use my orbit and just kind of see where it is floating. I'm going to go back to my home. And now I can come up here and underneath this symbol, I can select joint. Now there's a lot of different joints that I could go with. Currently, the easiest thing is to, of course, use the one called simple. For my component 1, that's highlighted right here, my tunnel block, the snap select is already highlighted. Now where do I want to pick this up and where do I want to put it is what we're trying to do. So I have to anticipate exactly where I'm going to pick this up and where I'm going to put it. And you can see if I hover over a face, there are other areas that pop up. My little XYZ coordinate system is also popping up. You can also see that it wants to snap to specific spots, and it will ask you, if I just select the face, well, okay, along that face, which one do you want? So it's probably a good idea. Same thing with the edge. You can see the edge here. If I click on the edge, it's going to want me to pick one of those points along the edge. So if you can, just go ahead and pick one of those points immediately. For this one, I do want to highlight the midpoint, and I want to pick now, it defaults down to the component 2 for a mode, and snap, I want to click on that midpoint, and you can see it automatically moves pretty sharp. Now currently, that's the only spot that it's selected. Now it is what's called a rigid. So just like anything that you draw, a little pop-up menu, in this case assembly, a little pop-up menu comes up. Now the motion of it is in that little pop-up menu. The degrees are right here. I could also move over to this tab and you can see the same motions are here. So either here or here, and you can see once again the position, the degree here, angle, it's right there. You could also do a little free form here and go, well, maybe I want it like this, upside down next to it. And you can see if I put negative 180 degrees, it would turn flat. But I think I'm going to follow my picture and keep it at 0. If you want to mess around with the other types of, right now it's going to stay there. It's rigid. It's going to stay. If you select Revolute, it'll actually give you a little animation on exactly what Revolute would do. Same thing with the slider and what it would do. Cylindrical, thin slot, planar, and ball, which is pretty much everywhere. Okay. But currently, I'm going to keep it rigid, so it's going to stay there, and select OK. Now I got to see what else I did, and go into, maybe I'll do my green blocks next. Okay. Nice easy one, same thing. Click, hold, drag. And I'm going to kind of get it out of here. Okay. Now, this is where some of you might, you might go further and go, I got this. I got this. Absolutely. You bet. If I select OK on this and I go back to up to my assembly and I select joint and I select for my midpoint here, and I'm going to get into my orbit, select escape, and I'm going to pick my midpoint there, and I'm going to keep it rigid and select OK, and there we are. Now, once again, some of you might jump ahead. Totally fine. If I click here and drag this in, now I'm at the point of it not being rotated the way I want it. So now this is where it'll come in handy with some of those other components for assembly. So if I stick with where this is, just hit OK, and I select my assembly and then select joint, and I still want to maintain this midpoint here and this midpoint here, but now I need to spin it around. So this is going to be a good one to tinker with and see exactly what's going to be used. Obviously, I can't do it this way. I could do it this way. It's fortunately in that realm of symmetrical object where I can spin that around or mirror and enter 207 degrees. The motion, it might not be a bad thing to maybe use one of these other ones to kind of spin it around. Maybe Revolute would work, and I could. Looks like we're going to stick with. Now I could also spin it around by means of using the XYZ. Oh, I could flip it. I'm sorry, flip it. Okay. A lot of different options that are there. So I'm going to, because now I'm looking at this, I need to hit a 0 on that. Looked like it was a little bit off. Okay. I think that's how I'm going to approach that one. Okay. Now if I see that I had kept this joint in there, I could change that and edit joint. So all I did was hit my right mouse button on it, and I'm going to stick with the rigid. Keep it in there. So just like any drawing, you can always modify. Okay, so the last cylinder, or the last components, are going to be 2 cylinders, and according to my phone, and this is why I wanted you folks to round up or down a little bit. The cylinders themselves were rounded down. The tunnel block, the blue one that you see in the drawing, I actually rounded up from, it was like I said, 2.3 something, 3.8 something to that effect, and went up to 3.5. So you're going to see that in the phone, and the blocks, or the cylinders on top of the tunnel block, are going to be just a little bit of a different variant in size. Once again, it's more of the experience on getting these blocks together than getting down to the exact measurement that the blocks are. So if I click hold and drag my cylinder out, and I'm going to put it up here, up out of the way, I am going to anticipate selecting the bottom and putting it on the top, and then I think I'm going to do an offset of it a little bit one way or the other, and try to figure out exactly a fair X distance, but using that distance nonetheless to make it kind of look like my photo. So if I select OK, and same thing, go back to my assembly and joint, and I'm going to wiggle this around, and my first one, I'm going to click in the middle there. My second one, I'm going to wiggle down a little bit. Okay. And I'm going to make sure that Z is pointing up here. And then click. And there it is. I'm going to use my orbit. So before I exit that out, or even if you did, let's just say that you did. Escape to get out of my orbit. And if I select OK, obviously that doesn't look like my drawing. Tell you what, I'm going to bring in the other cylinder. We'll do the same thing. Scoot it up, assemble joint. We'll go around so I can see the bottom. Okay. Of course, right. Assemble joint. Select middle there. Wiggle down, escape out of my orbit, click there, and select OK. So I have 2 cylinders that obviously do not represent my photo that I took on my phone. So I'm going to go back down here into my tree, which my little screencastify share. The assembly here, this joint, I'm going to hit my right mouse button, so that was this one, and select Edit Joint. So now I want to scooter it this way. And it looks like the offset is going to be about 0.5. So regardless if I, have it right on the edge or have no separation on the inside, I guess I could do 1.125, 1 1/8, 0.5, yeah, 0.625. Have that just barely off the edge, and then the other one will be centered. Okay, and this one is going to be my last joint, edit joint, and same thing. This time I'm going to wiggle this way and type in, yep, a negative 0.625 and select OK. So yeah, it doesn't totally, like if I go to my front view, you can see that there's a smidge of an offset on either side and there's a gap in the middle, but it's a fair representation with fairly decent measurements with the rounding. Don't have to once again get exact. And I have my assembly drawing done. So from this point, what I need you to do is obviously save this. And this is save as the assembly in my course files, save. From here, I would like you to export it because I need to see, I need to be able to manipulate your file and look at your drawings. If they're all rigid, that's totally fine. But what people do is they try to just put things in position to make it look like how it was stacked. And unfortunately, when there's a little bit of an orbit, one's floating one way or the other just because of the depth. So I do need to check out to make sure that that everything has a resemblance to what you sent me with the picture. So we need to go to File, Export, and the name, Assembly. We can save it as a Fusion file. Make sure you know where the location is, and then go ahead, and if you don't like the location, hit the 3 dots. I always put my stuff on the desktop because I know it's going to be saved here, but the desktop is always a nice easy way to just pick it up and submit it into to Canvas. Then you're not fishing around all over the place for it. So if I select export, and now it's exporting its way onto the desktop, and then I will go into the Fusion, and under 2.1.3 in Canvas is going to be your assembled blocks. And this is where the picture goes, which we already did. This is where your picture goes for your 6 block stack.